Cyan Vert remembered the words of his father. His father had always advised him to live for the clan and not to desire any other thing. Cyan is faced with the task of staying with his brother and fighting their enemies side by side like shadows. The enemy, who was also a betrayer, found the whole situation to be so exciting. He watched as the fearless knight, Cyan Vert, fought against the continent's strongest commanders on his own. However, the relentless Cyan would not give up, even though his face was smeared with blood dripping down the two sides of his mouth. Cyan knelt on one of his knees, still holding his sword with a firm grip. Then he called out the name of their enemy, whose name was Boris. He demanded to know what the fuck made Boris betray him. He asked if it was the Emperor. Then suddenly, an aura of black fog flowed out from Cyan, and it saturates the entire atmosphere around him and his enemies. The sickening black fog becomes thicker. Boris saw that the rumors about Cyan is true. He confirms that Cyan is an assassin from an organization called the Mist. All the S's wasn't actually necessary. Boris knew that Mist is just an organization like Fog, which is a subsidiary of the Knights of Light, which is Boris's organization. Boris decided to kill Cyan and make a report to his superiors that he got rid of an impure being that was affiliated with the heathens. Cyan was so furious after hearing what Boris had said about him. He said that he would deal with Boris to the point that he would not be able to have the strength to say anything after their duels. He said that he was very sure that Boris would not even have a tooth left in his mouth after the deadly fight with himself. Then Cyan charged up against Boris. With his sword by his side, the aura grew stronger, and a flame emitted from the black fog, covering a layer of another red fog aura. Boris jeered and told Cyan to give up and surrender to him. Cyan paused. Boris said Cyan will only be fighting with an egg against a boulder if he intends to fight with his secret power. He said there is a hidden 9th star magic barrier cast on the battlefield. Cyan sensed that he was in danger and needs to get out of the place so that he could reveal their real enemy and some other secrets to his brother. Cyan summoned courage and he vowed to tear down the barrier into bits. As he was running up against Boris, he heard a voice behind him telling him to stop. Living for the clan is what his father had always wanted him to do. His father would say that Ashel, who is Cyan's brother by extension, is also the clan itself. Cyan Vert has always believed that his own success is the same as that of his brothers, Ashel Vert, till he had a brief moment of confusion. Ashel walked up to Cyan, who bowed before him. He praised Cyan for being so loyal to him and the people. Then he said that he is just trying to release Cyan from his duties by sending him to the grave. Cyan was shocked to realize that his own blood brother was his real enemy. Ashel called Cyan a demon, and he said the black fog aura confirms it. He said that Cyan had fooled them for a long time. Enraged at the abandonment of his own brother, his own kingdom, Cyan acknowledged that he had worked faithfully like a dog for 20 years under them. And with that thought, his motive was resolute. He would give everything he had right now if it meant that he could destroy Ashel. After mocking Ashel because of his fear, Cyan and his brothers exchanged blows, only for Cyan to get the better vantage point on Ashel, just to be stopped by Boris's magic barrier upon attack. Taking advantage of the opening, Ashel plunged his blade through Cyan. Pause. He then told Cyan the truth, that he knew he was a demon from the start, and it's good that he had never trusted Cyan from the beginning. After kicking him away like a piece of trash that he was for losing that fight, Cyan got a second wind right as he passed out and lunged for a final attack, and with only millimeters away from his brother's neck, the counterattack was immaculate, a slash so divine that it removed not only Cyan's arms, but his head, killing him instantly. Cyan then jolted back to life as he heard a loud shout from Emily, one of the maids serving in the royal palace. It has been 20 years since he saw her. The room, it looked familiar. Even the furniture arranged in just the same way as it used to be. Finally, he got to know that he had regressed to his past life as a child. Emily told Cyan to stop pretending to be tired and start preparing for his training. Cyan looked puzzled a moment. He stood up from his bed and looked around, and he realized that he is back in the Duchy family. He remembered what happened 27 years ago, in the year 985, and on the 1st of March, which was just a year before he got admitted into the academy. The Duchy family held a duel training session every year, and so it happened that year when Duke Vert, a man who played two positions, one as a real nigga and the other as Cyan's father, and the head of the Duchy family, 3 positions, attended the event, making it a very big event. At the same year, Cyan Vert, Cyan's half-brother, a bitch-ass nigga who happened to be the same age as Cyan, was his opponent. Margaret Ezreth was the Duke's wife and Cyan's mother, and that was a hoe-ass bitch. Because of her position, Cyan received a lot of attention, while Cyan was neglected and left to be in his own. In the past, after the duel, Cyan, a former bitch-ass nigga, was known as a bastardized son after being mocked in the fight. He also became the laughingstock, and his father, a real nigga, stopped paying attention to him. Even the maid looked down on him. Cyan could not explain whether he was having a dream, or his past life has just appeared before him, or whether he was under a magic spell which is capable of creating a strong illusion that could change things around him. But at that moment, Cyan wished that he could change his future, as he found himself standing right in front of a boastful opponent. At that point, real nigga Duke Vert ordered the boys to fight. Cyan and Cyan began their duel. Cyan's charge using bitch-ass nigga strike. Cyan's speed and his sword swinging made Cyan wonder if Cyan was just a snail or any other slower animal. But then he realized, as a real-ass nigga, bitch-ass niggas could never catch up. Cyan used his swift movement of hater evasion jutsu, 4th form, dodging Cyan's attack, causing him to hit the ground. Then he disarmed Cyan using real nigga deflect on Cyan's sword. Then he kicked him so hard in his left foot. Cyan fell on the floor with a loud thump, crying as only a bitch-ass nigga would. Cyan knew that he could just end the duel by pointing his sword at the throat of his opponent, but he wasn't satisfied with that. When he realized how Cyan had bullied him in the academy during his past life, he decided to deal with Cyan so that he would never have to bother about that bully again. Using Black Air Force breathing technique number 5, kick a nigga while he down, Cyan lost the duel. And as a result of his defeat, Cyan was honored by the Duke and was given a bodyguard, who happened to be one of the Duke's top-class knights, and a real nigga. Cyan walked up to meet Ezreth, and he asked her about Cyan's condition, but she scolds him for beating her son. Cyan reminds her that it's normal for one of the opponents to be injured in a duel, especially a bitch-ass nigga. But Ezreth insulted him. She called him a bastard, a son of a dirty whore, and a poor street beggar. Cyan, infuriated by her comments, thought, as a real nigga, is Cyan gonna have to kill a bitch? At that point, Cyan decided to make life unbearable for Ezreth. Instead of killing her, he planned to torture her slowly and make her suffer. He smiled and reminded her that both he and Cyan are going to be in the same academy together. He asked if Ezreth desired to see her son graduate with all his limbs intact. Ezreth questioned Cyan's threats, and she became so furious that she wanted to slap Cyan. But Cyan's bodyguard stopped her and apologized on Cyan's behalf, and informed Ezreth that the Duke sent for Cyan. Cyan enjoyed protection from the top-class bodyguard that was sent to him by the Duke. He was fascinated by the fact that he was a real nigga, but also fascinated that he had a reliable and nice knight who does not submit to the Duke's wife as his bodyguard. As he entered the Duke's chamber, Cyan introduced himself and greets his father. He remembered that the last meeting they had together was about 15 years ago. Duke Willis Vert, the great feudal lord of Velias, a western feud of the Ushif Empire. The world called him the guardian of the continent. He was a hero who stopped the invasion of the demons for a long time, with the help of his magic powers and the worldly wisdom. He was a man that shouldered another man's responsibility until he died in a battle during the invasion of the Demon King's army. All he ever wanted was peace. However, Cyan had a different view about him. He saw him as the man who utilized his free will to live a life dedicated to serving others. A stupid man. The Duke asked Cyan about how he managed to calculate the steps, swing into action, and dodge Kranz's attack. He wondered about how Cyan got to learn those martial skills of a real nigga. Cyan replied that he had practiced being a real nigga and martial arts on his own during the night. The Duke replied that he had always known Cyan to be a person who had no interest in swordsmanship. He wondered why Cyan would have loved to hide excellent skills for a long time. Cyan explained that he did that because he doesn't really want to catch others' attention. However, the Duke asked if what he did after defeating Kranz was really necessary. Cyan wondered about the reason for the Duke's numerous questions. Then he said he only wants to prove himself, that he's not a bitch-ass nigga. Cyan said he really wants to prove that he is better than Kranz. Even though they shared the same royal blood, he said this defined his purpose of engaging in a duel with his own brother. The Duke was delighted to hear an excellent answer from Cyan. He could see that Cyan was far more intelligent than he ever thought he could be, and he would eventually get hoes and be just as real a nigga as the Duke was. Also, he perceived that Cyan would be a supportive warrior and would fight alongside his brother, Ashel. Then he told him to ask for a reward. Cyan said that he would like to fight on the battlefield. Cyan planned to dismantle Ashel's plan with the knowledge and experience he had in his past life. When Cyan's older sister Alice heard about this, she was angry. So angry that she dragged him by the collar. She said that he is insane and that his victory over Kranz has gotten to his head. He's not as real of a nigga as she thought. Then she challenged him to a duel, and she said she would only agree with his decision if only Cyan could survive the first 3 minutes of her attack. During the duel, she asked if Cyan wants to go to the battlefield because of the throne or some of the mundane materials. She was surprised when Cyan dodged her first attack. She considered him lucky enough to achieve such a feat, and she praised him for being intuitive. Then she launched several other attacks. Alice thought that her younger brother was strong enough to resist all of her attacks. She became furious, and she lost her mind. Then she switched her mode of attacks, and her sword transformed to the Aqua Blade, a 6th grade magical weapon. Cyan, on the other hand, found it difficult to control himself. He knew that he could kill his own beloved sister before the end of the 3 minutes. He knew that everything depended on one factor. So internally, he cried out for help. Yukin, who was Cyan's top-class bodyguard, came to his rescue, and that was the end of the duel. Yukin blamed Alice for being so harsh on her younger brother. On realizing her mistakes, Alice apologized for her mistakes, and she hugged her beloved brother. She said she only wanted to stop him from going to the battlefield, but she couldn't stop him from being a real-ass nigga. Alice, Cyan's older sister, was the elite of elites who got the highest grades in all her subjects, from a royal academy that carried a lot of talented kids in all fields of study. At a very young age, she trained in swordsmanship, and she was mentioned as being the guardian of the continent along with Cyan Vert, the oldest son of the Duke. But she was murdered after joining the Knights of Light. All of this happened in Cyan's past life, but at the present, Cyan vowed to protect his sister. Yukin introduced himself to Alice as the secret protector sent from the Duke to safeguard Cyan. The next day, Alice returned to the academy. She had only to see the Duke before her graduation. Cyan, on the other hand, trained himself and focused on building physical strength. A maid arrived with a package in her hands. The package contained an hellhound blood sent from Alice to Cyan. It is a rare item that can only be found in the Limie Valley. It has also been rumored to have been found in the black market, which is true. We black people do have these things. The blood of the demonic beast is considered poisonous because of its sickening smell and the burning feelings upon consumption. But it actually increased the mana and strength of its consumer. Emily watched with astonishment as Cyan emptied the hellhound blood into the bowl. She wondered if he was really going to drink it. And yes, he did just that. Cyan reminds Emily that he's the only one who adapts to her cooking skills. He said that he could remember one day she cooked some mushroom soup. He said his heart stopped for a moment after taking a single bite of the so-called mushroom soup. Cyan declares that the hellhound blood gives a better taste than Emily's water-bound mushroom soup. Then he walked away. He had waited for a day that he would be all done by himself, and he'd finally got one. Cyan could remember that in the past, also received a revelation from Lumendel, the food of light. It was said that an ancient temple is hidden somewhere in the mountains. Deep down the mountain, there was a place concentrated with mana. Cyan decides to use the revelation from the past to his advantage, before the present Ashul discovered that same revelation. So Cyan went to the ancient temple that served Lumendel,
the god of light, until all of the history of the land was erased.
Because of the demon war that happened 300 years ago. The temple existed in the mountains behind the castle. In the year 999, so close to that 1,000, but sorry, only real niggas get it. On the 12th of August, humanity finally succeeded in driving out the Demon King's army from the land of Velius. The Demon King's army was far stronger than that of the humans, but the humans found ancient relics called the God's Weaponry. These allow the humans to take the win. One of those relics, called Duranda Arc, was a holy sword blessed by... All right, Demon King, I got it from here. Nigga. It's a holy sword blessed by Lumendel, the god of light. The sword was the main cause of humanity's victory against the demon, and the sword will also be the weapon with which Ashul will use to murder Cyan in the future. Cyan moved close to the sword. He thought that the sword had something to do with his regression, but he discovered that the sword had nothing to do with his present state. Once a visitor walked past the light place and the sword, there is usually a shadow that looked like that of the underworld. At first glance, it looks like the sword shadow, but in fact, it is no shadow, but a pathway. This pathway leads to another room hidden by the altar of the light. Cyan went to the room. He took a dagger from the room. Then as he was about to walk away, he greets the sleeping demon. Upon waking up, the demon asks Cyan if it understands the implications of his actions. Cyan smiled and replied that for the demon to be awake, it implies that he is the new owner of the sword. The demon roared and said that it's too late for Cyan to regret his actions.
I'll take it from here, please. So the demon charges at Cyan. Cyan catches it by the throat, and the demon grabs onto Cyan's arm.
And was about to give Cyan the cleanest shoryuken you'll ever see, with these pink-colored claws. Cyan had to let go from holding the demon, but in the process he dodged the demon's attack and pushed away to reset the battle. The demon took a stance from a distance and asked if Cyan was the rightful owner of the sword, and Eru's successor and the demon's new master. The demon refused to submit to Cyan. He plans to take over Cyan's body, because the demon behind the Duranda Arc sword is fond of taking possessions of humans. The very battle intelligent Cyan moved back and cast a spell of demonic sword control on the demon. The demon dropped down on the floor, kind of like Inuyasha and Sit Boy, while Cyan forced the demon into submission. Pause. Once the demon submits to Cyan, Cyan decides to go back home with the subdued demon now transformed into a fiery ball with the functional demonic eyes and mouth. The subdued demon asked about the name of his new master. He also asked if the sword, Eru, really chose him. Cyan told the subdued demon about his name. He said that he had been chosen by the sword from the past. Cyan said that the sword will have to wait for 20 years before its owner can actually possess it. And with the help of his dagger,
Cyan cut off the main part of the sword's handle.
Then it fell off from the sword. Cyan grabbed it and he smiled to himself. He was satisfied that things will get more interesting and more
exciting in the future.
How time flies. Finally, the Duke, the knights, his escorts, and Cyan were on their way to the battlefront. The Duke ordered the knights to stop the chariots. He stepped out of the chariot. Then the escort, knights, and Cyan followed. Cyan was asked if he wants to change his mind about going to the battlefront. Cyan was brave and resolute. He was determined to go to the battlefront at all cost. So he rejected the Duke's offer to be a bitch-ass nigga and the offer for redemption. The Duke waved at Ulkin. It was a weird wave. But Ulkin brought out a scroll and he ordered him to open it. Ulkin opened the scroll and the atmosphere changed because it was a magical scroll. The magical scroll lightened up the fiery circle to appear on the scroll. A fiery hellhound monster with 2 red eyes bounced out from the fiery circle. The hellhound is a low-ranked demonic beast from the Lamia Valley. Cyan guessed that the knights and his father must have had a hard time preparing this item for this trial. Cyan thought that the knights and his father would swoop in if the fight with the monster got dangerous. The Duke declared that Cyan will be responsible for his actions. He asked Cyan to prove to him that he is really determined to go to the battlefront by defeating the Hellhound. Immediately, Ulkin remembered that Cyan had once asked that the both of them have a duel together. He remembered that the young Cyan said that the purpose of the duel is for him to fulfill a promise to his father and also have the sense of a real duel. He remembered that he told Cyan that someone like Kranz would be a good match for him. But Kranz was a bitch-ass nigga and will always run away anytime he sees Cyan. Since Cyan insisted on having a duel with him, Ulkin agreed to have a duel with Cyan on the condition that he will fight with his sheath instead of his sword. He said he will only focus on defending himself and will be expecting the attacks to come from Cyan. Cyan thanks Ulkin, and he asks that whatever happens during this duel, it should be kept away as a secret from his father. Cyan charged towards Ulkin, and he launched his first attack. Ulkin found it difficult to believe that the sword of a 10-year-old could be so heavy. Cyan somersaulted and launched another attack on Ulkin before landing, but Ulkin was real good at defending and could not be brought down easily by somebody that was just as new as a real nigga as Cyan. The duel ended. Cyan praised Ulkin for a job well done and thanked him for his help. Ulkin acknowledged his master as a great swordsman. He found it difficult to believe that his weak young master Cyan had grown so much. Then he believed that Cyan would be able to pass any trial that comes his way, if the feeling he had during his duel with the young master was true. The Hellhound monster snarled at Cyan, as if it was given a signal to attack. The Hellhound approached the waiting Cyan and launched his first attack. Cyan dodged it like a boss. From the first attack, Cyan could see that his strength was nothing compared to that of the monster. So he began to look for a way to figure out the monster's weakness so that he could end the battle once and for all. Cyan launched a series of attacks on the Hellhound monster. Then he found out the monster's weak point. Acting on that information, Cyan flew up in the air, instantly executing a real nigga pose. But immediately prior to the pose, Cyan had unleashed a barrage of slashes on the monster, killing him. Cyan watched as the monster's blood continued to flow out. He wished that he can get a few bottles filled with the blood of the Hellhound monster. The Duke, impressed, gave Cyan a standing ovation, and he promised to visit him later on the battlefield. Then he walked away.